Okay, so here's another one from forever ago. This is from the World Combat Championships. I think that was in 1995. And this is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus wrestling. Here we go.
Will be Renzo Gracie.
Yep. So here comes Renzo for his second match. I think this was his second match of the night. In the opening match, he fought that judo player. Choked him. You know, it's interesting that he wears his kimono into the octagon or into the ring, but then doesn't wear it during the fights. As you recall, or maybe you don't, in the early UFCs, Renzo Gracie wore his kimono or his gi into the octagon and then actually wore it because he felt it helped wipe the sweat off his, sweaty opponents, but Renzo is not going to wear it, which is probably a wise idea, as the sport developed. You wanted to, give your opponent less and less to latch onto, Here comes his opponent, this guy, Phil Benedict, And you can see that this guy is, fairly fit,
One thing that comes to mind right here with regards to Phil Benedict, which certainly has to be to his advantage. His fight didn't even last a minute, so he certainly isn't fatigued.
And Phil Benedict has a cut on his nose. I think he fought earlier, Here we go. Jiu-Jitsu versus wrestling. Again, this announcer, man, I don't know where they found this guy, but he seems very, cartoonish in a way. It's like, hey, let's get a guy who has the most nasal voice we can find, Whatever. So it's Renzo Gracie representing Jiu-Jitsu versus this guy Phil Benedict, representing wrestling. I don't know anything about Benedict, but you can see he's a fairly fit individual, He's muscular, Yeah, and it's interesting how over the years you get to see what kind of body type best works for mixed martial arts or whatever, And you see these guys, the ones that look like bodybuilders, doesn't really work so well. You know what I mean? Most of the guys that have done well are guys whose body type is along the lines of, say, Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell. I mean, guys that are, not as thick, so to speak. Anyway, I forget how this fight actually goes. I think the wrestler maybe... Is he trying to keep it standing? Is he trying the sprawl and brawl thing, Because that didn't happen for quite some time. Wrestlers at first... Does Renzo take him down? Wrestlers at first were taking people down, like Mark Coleman. And then after a while, they began using their wrestling to keep it standing, like Dan Henderson. And then he would keep it standing and just knock people's heads off. You know what I mean? And it looks like Phil Benedict is actually trying this, which is interesting, But once again, like I say before, every martial art is designed to achieve something in a certain situation. And wrestling is not designed for no-holds-barred, competition. But the jiu-jitsu that Renzo Gracie here was practicing is specifically designed for this. Look, see? It might be crazy to say, oh, hey, the jiu-jitsu guy took down the wrestler, but there's a lot of other things going on. There's punching and all kinds of other stuff. And when there's punching involved, all of a sudden everything goes out the window. You know what I mean? And you see things happening that wouldn't normally happen, And so, that's why the jiu-jitsu player, Renzo, was able to take down the wrestler, because there's other variables at play which throw the wrestler off his game, If this was just a wrestling match between Mr. Benedict and Renzo Gracie, who would win that? Certainly the wrestler. People win in the situations where they are trained to win, And Renzo's mounted on him, and the wrestler has no idea what to do here. He's trying to punch him in the ribs from below, And I don't know if you know a lot about gravity, but gravity tends to go down, And also the floor is in the way, so punching up from the bottom into the ribs of your opponent, that's not going to do anything. See, look, Renzo's punching down into his face. This fight is very close to over, And it's not a question of jiu-jitsu beating wrestling, although that's exactly what's happening. It's a question of the guy who is more experienced with this rule set, I mean, Renzo, I should mention, years later fought in the UFC, and he fought Matt Hughes, who was a wrestler. But Matt Hughes was way more experienced in mixed martial arts. That was in the UFC, like I said, and Matt Hughes won that one. So it's not about which style is better. It's about which athlete has better adapted what they know to work in mixed martial arts and can impose their game plan, you know? Anyway, and you saw Renzo there was helping him up because in the first match, he stepped on the judo player's head, you know, and he caught some heat for that, you know what I mean? But look at this. The wrestler sprawls, you know, down you go.
Bob, one of the things
You know?
here clearly that you pointed out is the idea that his legs were dominant.
You know? I mean, it's not insane to say the more experienced person is probably going to win, you know? And the more experienced and more prepared person. And Renzo, for this one, was much more experienced and much more prepared. Because the style of jiu-jitsu that he brings into the circle of truth here, whatever you want to call it, is designed for this. It's really not that different than a challenge match. You know what I mean? Where, like, you and this other fellow both, you know, have a soft spot for the same lady and you decide you're going to throw down on the streets of Copacabana. You know what I mean? Anyway. You know, like at this time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what it was designed to accomplish and the situation it was designed for was much more appropriate than wrestling. And over time, that changed. Over time, and I mean now you look at it, you look at guys, wrestling is winning like crazy. You know, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov, you know. I mean, GSP, he did really well by learning wrestling, you know. But back here, this is before the wrestlers figured out how to make their superior takedown offense and defense applicable, you know. But then, like I said, later, Renzo Gracie fights Matt Hughes, and Matt Hughes was more experienced, and man, that didn't go so well for Renzo Gracie. But anyway, enough of my chattering.
Of course they do, but again, the reason why most strikers have not won any of these type of competitions because when they go to the mat, they're out of their element. So this is definitely benefits Gracie and all those type of grapplers who work on the ground.
Okay, once again, let's go to Richard with Renzo Gracie.
Oh, here we go, interview.
Thank you, Todd. Renzo, I noticed you seemed, we know you're comfortable on the ground. In fact, the finish was a classic mount position in jiu-jitsu. Yep. But the stand-up situation, you've obviously done some work in the punching and kicking area as well.
I have been practicing a lot. The people
Who's that behind him? Is that Alan Goes?
Family member can push.
I don't know.
I can push.
Maybe that's, no, I think that's high in Gracie, actually. Oh, looks like that's, is that Pedro Sauer back there? Interesting.
Yes, the difference of weight makes a lot of difference. I feel myself like a feather when I'm on the top of him. But I believe that my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my skills on the ground fighting, can make me able to stabilize the weight difference.
That definitely should. How do you feel now? All ready for another match? You seem like you're having a holiday out there.
No, it's not. The guys are tough. It's a hard job.
I think this is his second of 3 fights.
I'm very well prepared for that.
I think because he wins this one, he goes on to the finals to fight kickboxer or boxer or whatever. Maybe I'll put that one up later. Anyway, there you go. See you next time.